The state of Illinois sues the Trump administration again over the aggressive deportation efforts and alleged unconstitutional actions against U.S. citizens. A Chicago-based attorney says he'll lead a civil investigation into the killing of Minnesota resident Renee Good as her family breaks their silence. And a study from the University of Chicago suggests ways to improve attendance at Chicago public schools.
Welcome to the Chicago Report. I'm Schutz. The U.S. Supreme Court rules in favor of a downstate Illinois congressman in his quest to challenge mail-in ballot counting. The High Court rules that downstate Republican Mike Bost does have the standing to challenge Illinois' mail-in ballot law in court. The law allows for the counting of mail up to 2 weeks after Election Day. That's if it's postmarked on Election Day or before. Opponents to the law say it causes too much confusion. Earlier today on Chicago Live, we spoke with attorney T. Russell Nobile.
Ballots can continue to arrive 14 days after Election Day and be included in the count. And the problem with that is now there's so many ballots arriving after Election Day that is really starting to undermine the confidence in the election, because I mean, you go to bed at night, there's 150,000 votes, and you wake up in the morning and suddenly there's 250,000 votes. And then 3 days later, it's 350,000 votes. And so it's really corrosive to the democratic process to keep adding to the denominator of votes out there.
Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was one of the 2 dissenting votes expressing concern that this could potentially spur an increase in election lawsuits. And by the way, you can stream Chicago Live weekday afternoons from 1 to 3. Lots of good interviews from Anita on there, including one about a new Gallup poll showing both the Republican and Democratic parties eroding voters and more people declaring as independents right now. Prominent Illinois defense attorney Antonio Romanucci announces a civil investigation into the killing of Minnesota resident Renee Good at the hands of an ICE agent. This as Good's family issues its first official statement. And part of it says, quote, "Nay was the beautiful light of our family and brought joy to anyone she met. She was relentlessly hopeful and optimistic, which was contagious. We all already miss her more than words could ever express." And Romanucci says, quote, "People in Minneapolis and across this country truly care about what happened to Renee Good on January 7, 2026, and are committed to understanding how she could have been killed on the street after dropping her child off at school." And joining us now is brand new Fox Chicago reporter Say Kwan, who previously served in that capacity for 5 years in the Twin Cities, correct? 6 years, 5 years?
It actually was about 3 years.
3 years,
but I'm
okay.
from Minnesota. So
You're from Minnesota. So you've witnessed a lot of turmoil over the last year. I know you were coming down here to Chicago as the shooting was taking place on January 7th. Tell us what the tenor of the city is right now and the various communities that have withstood a lot of these actions.
Well, I think Minneapolis has been under an immense amount of pressure and scrutiny over the last few years. I mean, let's back up to what happened in 2020. We all know, obviously, what happened. George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis by a Minneapolis police officer. And I think that just when we were starting to come out of this healing phase, I think, obviously there was a lot that happened in just the last year as well. First, we think about the politically motivated attacks. That's been a very hot topic right now.
This is on the lawmakers, Horstman.
The Hortman family,
Hortman,
correct.
I'm sorry.
They were killed in that. And then, of course, there was a whole list of other lawmakers that were targets, basically, by Vance Belter. So that really shook up Minnesota and the entire community. And if you don't know Minnesota, it's really, truly rooted in community. People in Minnesota are the type of people to shovel their neighbors' driveways when it's, below freezing. And people really care about each other in that neighborhood. Everyone knows who's in their neighborhood, right?
Are you talking about the neighborhood that the incident with Good happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I'm just
And it was close
now.
to where the George Floyd incident happened.
Correct. It actually happened less than a mile away. And there was a lot of also debate over what to do with that site of George Floyd Square. There was a lot of debate over what they were going to do. So finally, once we were starting to kind of come out of that, now this shooting takes place. I didn't even mention, of course, the Annunciation mass shooting that happened right, the first week of school. And then, of course, now Renee Good. And so I think right now, people have been really seeking a place where they can heal and really come together. And of course, now Renee Good is shot and killed. And so now this raises a whole new set of concerns. And then, of course, there's been a lot of developments out of this shooting as well, including, of course, now the FBI leading the investigation on this.
And not really cooperating with local authorities who also want to investigate. And I want to get into that, but tell me, in Chicago, there was polling basically showing the majority of residents here were opposed to these stepped-up deportation efforts, some of these aggressive tactics against protesters. We've seen lawsuits where judges have ruled blocking some of these tactics. What is the tenor in Minneapolis? Do you sense that the majority of residents there are upset about this, or is it split where some support this?
I think when you think about Minneapolis, the city itself, it's a very liberal city. And this is a very known fact. Actually, I heard from Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara, who was talking about this as well. It's a very liberal city. And so you think about what's happening there. And like you said, most of the people in the city of Minneapolis, not talking the entire state, are definitely very concerned over what's happening. Once again, as I said, that city is very much rooted in community. They know their neighbors. They're very protective over the people that they know and love. And so I think when you are seeing these aggressive tactics, not only that, but also the rhetoric that's being used to describe the people who really make up Minneapolis. Let's talk about the Somali diaspora.
I was going to get to that, yeah.
100%. I mean, that's about 80,000 Somalis who live in Minnesota, most of them living in the Twin Cities metro area. So, of course, when you're hearing from the president and you hear rhetoric like they're garbage, Minnesotans are going to, get defensive. And they're going to protect
the Somali community has been rooted in that area for many, many years, so it seems like they're integrated into the community. But there is a lot of talk nationally about the social services fraud that they discovered, and Somalis have been a part of this. But there was that viral video by an influencer who's a MAGA adjacent influencer. And I think the national reaction was, well, how come the mainstream media wasn't reporting on this? But it seems like locally in Minnesota, the media there had been following some of what was happening in the social service space.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually an investigation that was done by the Fox 9 station, Minneapolis KMSP, and they've been following this for quite some time. Now, I think there's a little bit of this weird gray area because this influencer went to these daycare centers trying to kind of expose these daycare centers, and some of that information was incorrect. Some of it, of course, we have a big fraud investigation playing out in Minnesota right now that involves a lot of state lawmakers as well. But I think that there was a lot of kind of questioning over, was this correct, was this not? And now this has kind of been this full-on investigation. Now, the person really in charge of that investigation, Joe Thompson, is one of six or seven prosecutors who have now officially resigned.
And that's the kind of latest scandal right now is the U.S. Attorney's Office. There are 6 or 7 prosecutors resigning because the DOJ has chosen not to investigate the shooter, instead investigating the wife of Renee Good. Tell us the turmoil that this is causing and perhaps the feeling that there might not be a fair investigation here. Any police-involved shooting, agent-involved shooting, especially like that, a shocking video like that, usually gets a very serious investigation. Is there the feeling that that's just not going to happen here?
Yeah, 100%. I think that a lot of the people in Minneapolis right now are kind of using that and their decision to really push this investigation more so toward the FBI. I think they're kind of using that as, okay, we were right. This is how it was going to be all along. I think people knew that in Minneapolis. Now, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the entire state. I don't know. But I will say, of course, people in Minneapolis are going to be outraged by that. That's only going to make things worse for them because right now they're also in a time of healing, or at least trying to heal, find the answers. Will they get the answers is the question that they're all asking right now.
You know, politics plays so large into this. Walz obviously having run for vice president. Pritzker here, a big agitator of Trump and Republicans. Is there a sense that a lot of the target on Minneapolis and the Twin Cities is political, like it is here, a blue city, democratically a majority, and local officials like Pritzker, Walz, that tend to be very harsh toward the president.
100%. I think there's a lot of similarities there. I mean, Governor Walz also announced that he was going to be running for a third term and then later decided that he was going to drop out. A lot of that has to do with the fraud investigation here. I think there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered, but a lot of the rhetoric that's being used is, how was this able to happen under your watch? And so I think because of that, he's kind of setting this aside, realizing that maybe this is not the best position for him to be running for a third term as governor. So yes, I think there are a lot of similarities all in all.
Pritzker running for a third term as well. So big parallels here. And now you're bringing your expertise down here to Chicago. You're our newest reporter, and welcome to the family. Good to have you here.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here as well.
Thanks, Saquon. Appreciate it. And speaking of lawsuits and legal actions, the state of Illinois has launched another one against the Trump administration, this one to curb some of the actions of federal immigration agents who've targeted protesters of the high-profile raids that make up Operation Midway Blitz. Joining us now is our state's top attorney, Attorney General Kwame Raoul. Attorney General Raoul, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, there's so many lawsuits here, so tell us specifically what this one is seeking.
Yeah, this one is seeking for court intervention. First of all, thanks for having me. This lawsuit recognizes and documents a lot of the information we've received from Illinois residents with regards to how CBP and ICE have carried out their immigration enforcement. It's seeking, first of all, with regard to the Border Patrol, that we're not on a border, and Congress has set out for Border Patrol agents to carry out their responsibilities on the border, and they're not trained to do immigration enforcement in the interior, and as they have been, and it's resulted in a disruption of our communities throughout. There have been reports of agents being at courthouses and schools, at daycare centers, and other places, private residences and private businesses being violated without a warrant. There's been the practices of the various agents towards law-abiding protesters and those that may just be not even protesting in the area, including police officers that have been tear gassed. There's a variety of practices that we're calling for the courts to cease, to intervene and have them cease. One of the things that I want to be clear about is we understand that immigration enforcement must take place and has taken place. It has taken place under every presidential administration. It's usually enforcement and removal officers who are trained to do targeted immigration enforcement that carry this out. By having these CBP officers and others who are not trained to do this immigration enforcement, we have had a lot of violation of citizens' rights as well as others.
And certainly we've seen policing tactics, and I've talked to local police, retired and current, that say there are tactics they're using that local police outlawed years and years ago because they're A, not effective, and B, very dangerous to everybody in an urban area. But are you seeking then to just have all of CBP activities stop and just leave it to ICE?
Well, it's not just that. We're certainly seeking that Border Patrol not be part of this operation. But with regards to ICE agents, we still want them to follow appropriate policies and procedures. We still want them not just to be randomly stopping people and asking them whether they're citizens. We still don't want them to be tear gassing law-abiding people, including our law enforcement officers. We don't want them to conduct immigration enforcement in sensitive areas like courthouses and schools and daycare centers. So we don't want them to violate people's privacy with biometric scanning. So there's there's a number of things that we allege and that we seek relief on, even if we're successful with having Border Patrol agents back at the border.
So and that's interesting because I was reading some, critique from legal experts saying they didn't think that this lawsuit had a whole lot of chance to succeed on the merits. But are you going to get some kind of discovery where we learn more about what's going on, whether there is some kind of biometric drones, cameras being used to spy on people?
Yeah, well, we intend on engaging in discovery. We have received a lot of information from Illinois citizens and through different portals and so forth, as well as directly. We've received information with regards to license plates being switched from the Secretary of State's office, for example, who's received information from Illinois residents, and certainly we will seek to get more information through litigating this matter.
How is this different, just for our viewers, because there are so many cases to wade through? So tell us how this is different than the case brought by the journalists and the press club and protesters that did result in some injunctions and TROs and some oversight, although now that case is kind of fizzling out. How is this different?
I think this is broader. This is on behalf of the state. We're the only entity that can bring a lawsuit on behalf of the state and its sovereignty. It's protecting our ability to maintain peace in our streets, and it's different in the regards that I think we're have a broader approach versus a case that's brought on behalf of specific individuals. We've joined with the city of Chicago to file this. So this is two governmental entities that are bringing this case. All
right, Attorney General Kwame Raoul, thank you very much for joining us, and go Bears, and we appreciate your time.
Go Bears.
All right. And when we come back, how to get CPS kids to show up for class more often. Stick around. Welcome back. If ever there were a crisis in Chicago public schools, it's this. More and more students missing more and more class. According to the University of Chicago Consortium on School Research, the rate of chronic absenteeism rose during COVID and has not really gone back down. But the consortium has some suggestions on how to change that. And joining us now is Executive Director Elaine Allensworth. Thank you so much for speaking with us. First of all, Elaine, what does chronic absenteeism mean? And tell us what the rates are for K through 12 and then or for K through 8 in high school.
Yeah, so chronic absenteeism means students are missing at least 10% of school days. And so there's been a very large rise in the percentage of students who are chronically absent. It's not just in Chicago, it's all across the country. It happened, with the COVID-19 pandemic, and it just hasn't come back down. So we have more than twice as many students who are chronically absent than we did prior to the pandemic. And it's not just that more students are chronically absent, but we also have more students that are very chronically absent, missing even up to 20% or more of school days. And we have fewer students that are in school, all the time, 95% days or more, which is really what you need to be college ready.
And give me some of the statistics on that. I think I read in high school it was something like more than half were chronically absent. Is that correct?
Yeah. I can give you the exact numbers. 1 second. Yeah, it's about half of high school students are now chronically absent, which is a huge increase. I mean, in every single grade level, there's been an increase of about 20 percentage points in terms of the percentage of students who are chronically absent. And so in the high school grades, yeah, that's led to about half of students missing at least 10% of school days.
And we know COVID was a mess. It was a mess trying to track students down. Yeah. It was a mess trying to make sure that they were logged on to online learning. But why has that number remained stubbornly high?
Yeah, a lot of people are asking those questions, and that's why we did this study too, because we've seen in Chicago and other places across the country, these high rates of chronic absenteeism have not gone down very much since the end of the COVID pandemic. And there are still a lot of questions that we don't know. There certainly is a new normal right now in lots of ways. I think there are a lot of questions out there about, do you really need to go to school every day? We see, a lot of people are working from home. There are questions about, well, should you stay home? Now you can get your assignments online. You can, communicate with teachers virtually. So there have been a lot of questions, and that's why we did this study. We wanted to know, well, does it still matter as much as it did? And we found that it actually does, that the attendance still shows a strong relationship with student achievement, with learning gains, with students' grades. And those relationships are actually as strong now as they were before the pandemic.
And then not to mention socialization and being around other students and being around everybody. So tell us some of the solutions that you've kind of discovered here in terms of how those numbers could come down.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are wondering, is there anything you can do, given that absenteeism is up all across the country? And we know that, families face all kinds of different barriers in terms of getting students to school every day. But we actually found that there were large differences across schools in the degree to which absenteeism increased after the pandemic, and that there are large differences among schools serving similar populations of students. So students who live in the same neighborhoods with the same prior achievement, with the same prior attendance, they actually attend school more at some schools than others. So, we wanted to know why that is, and we still have a lot more to find out. But one thing that we see is that students' reports of the climate in the school makes a big difference. So where students feel they have stronger, more positive relationships with peers and with teachers, where they feel like school is safe for them, where they don't get bullied, students are much more likely to attend. We also found that teachers' relationships with parents mattered, even at the high school level. The more that teachers said that there were trusting relationships with parents and that parents were involved in the school, the higher students' attendance.
That's so interesting because I remember a teacher in high school, Sister Therese, who's no longer with us, who, if I was absent, I was terrified that I was going to be way behind, and she would kind of read me the riot act. This was some of that Catholic guilt. But talk about that aspect of it, the relationship between teacher and student then in terms of spurring on more attendance.
Yeah, and it completely makes sense. If you have people you're looking forward to seeing that are going to expect you to be there every day, you're going to be more likely to attend. Even if you face some barriers, even if you're not feeling up to it, you're going to be more likely to go. And on the other side, if there are people you want to avoid, if you're having conflict with peers or with a teacher, that's going to push you to not want to go, especially when you have other kinds of barriers that are making it hard to get to school. Likewise, it's not just for the student themselves, but when students are absent, it actually makes their peers less likely to go to school too, because you see other students aren't coming, you start to wonder, well, do I really need to go? And it also makes it harder to have high quality instruction. And that's another thing we found really mattered for attendance, is that students need to feel like it's worthwhile to go, that that you have to work hard in order to succeed. And so when you have really rigorous, high quality instruction, students are also more likely to attend. But it's harder to do that when you don't have when you have many students who are absent frequently.
Has CPS responded to this study at all, or have you talked to them about how you can implement this at CPS?
Yeah, we've been talking and working with CPS as we've been doing this study, learning about all the different initiatives they have going on and the different kinds of supports for schools. And we're going to continue working with them. We actually plan to visit schools to find out what it is that they're doing, what seems to be successful in terms of specific practices, and how students and families feel about those practices.
It just seems like something doesn't add up here at CPS, because graduation rates remain high, the rates of passage remain high, but then you see the ability to read at grade level, the ability to do math at grade level stubbornly low, and then absenteeism low. Is it hard to understand how graduation rates can be what they are when so many kids are chronically absent and these scores are so low?
Yeah, I mean, there's still work to do to figure everything out. There's so many different reasons for these different trends, and so we have to know, we have to figure out what exactly is happening in terms of why students' grades haven't gone down, why graduation rates remain high. But more to come.
More to come from the consortium. I know you do a lot of great work out of there, and we appreciate you.
And I don't want to jump to any conclusions too,
for sure,
because there are lots of different reasons. You could come up with lots of different hypotheses in terms of why you see these different kinds of trends. So I think let's wait and make sure we know what the evidence says.
But that absenteeism, that's an important focus in getting that number down. All right, Elaine Allensworth, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All right, questions or comments? Do you have a story you want me to look into? Email me at parisonpolitics@fox.com. And that's it for us tonight. As always, keep up with all the news you need to know at fox32chicago.com and with the Fox local app. Stay warm out there, everybody. We will see you tomorrow night at the same time.